Guys, I hate to say it. Well, I hate to pretend that I hate to say it, but if you go back to the very first video that I made on Jaden Hicks after he was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, I called it, even in the very thumbnail to that video. So last season, the Kansas City Chiefs played 2,573 snaps of listed safety play. Players that were designated as positional safeties. Justin Reed played 981. Mike Edwards was second on that list with 621. Then there was Brian Cook, who played a shortened season with 592. It remains to be seen how many snaps he would have played had he used the entire year as opposed to missing time. Chamari Connor then played 305 snaps, and finally Deon Bush played 74 snaps. Now, of this list, of those 2,573 total safety snaps, Mike Edwards vacates 621 of them. So, all things being equal, and that's kind of where you start planning out the season, is assuming things are going to be roughly equal. There are 621 more snaps to be played by these players plus Jaden Hicks. Now, Chamari Connor is in his second season, not his rookie season, so we assume that some of those snaps will be usurped by the second-year safety. Here is an interesting observation. The Kansas City Chiefs, who play lots of safety snaps under Steve Spagnuolo, 2,573 last year, now have Brian Cook, Chamari Connor, and Jaden Hicks that are all drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs and drafted fairly highly. After this season, we don't know what's going to happen with Justin Reed. Justin Reed is a very expensive player for the Chiefs, for this defense, but he's a player that has played nearly 1,000 snaps both of his seasons with the Chiefs. Should Jaden Hicks step into his role with the Kansas City Chiefs and surprise, it could mean very good things for the Chiefs moving forward, obviously, but it could also mean that the salary cap gets a little bit of relief once Justin Reed is no longer a Kansas City Chief. Justin Reed has been a very high performer for the Kansas City Chiefs, so will Jaden Hicks be able to come into Kansas City and play safety to the degree that eventually makes one of these starters expendable? Well, there are already sources that say maybe so. We've got an article to read, and then I have 5 thoughts on the matter in an article titled NFL Rookies Who Already Look Like Draft Day Steals After 2024 OTAs, titled that way, I can only assume, to optimize for search engine results, because that does not catch the eye. This article comes from Bleacher Report. It says, quote, "Certain players look the part but don't play that way. Kansas City Chiefs 4th-round safety Jaden Hicks looks the part and is already making waves. I tell him all the time, you know what? You are the prototype safety," Chiefs defensive back coach Dave Merritt told reporters. "He has the body, the size, the mental to be a really good football player in this league." The 6'2", 211-pound defender has already caught the eye of a two-time league MVP. "I mean, he's a big dude, and he's going to get better and better," quarterback Patrick Mahomes said. "I mean, you can see it early. He has the physical ability." For Hicks, the biggest part is how he fits into Kansas City's secondary. The back-to-back Super Bowl champs already have Justin Reid, Brian Cook, and Chamari Connor. Hicks is a physical defender who plays like a missile to the ball. Defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo has a plan for him, of course. "We've got him all over the place," Spagnuolo said. "He made a really great play today down toward the end zone at the end of practice. He's not as vocal as we need our safeties to be because he doesn't know the playbook yet." Sorry I struggled a little bit with that read-through. Clip Champs that I make these videos on crashed on me 2 times already trying to make this one video, so we'll see if this one goes through. I have 5 thoughts on the matter, starting with this. The article itself mentions prototype safeties, but which prototype is Jaden Hicks? There are 3 types of safety that the Kansas City Chiefs try to employ on the regular here: the center fielder, the corner heavy, and the enforcer. Now, the center fielder is the player that was Mike Edwards last year, was Tyrann Mathieu kind of before that. The stereotypical free safety guy who is able to read the quarterback and react. He is able to play center field and really sort of be the guy that is going to play chess against the quarterback in the defensive backfield. Then you have the corner heavy, the guy that was supposed to be Juan Thornhill, but Juan Thornhill never really came around to being that coverage specialist safety. Then you have the enforcer, the Daniel Sorensen, the Brian Cook of the defensive backfield, the guy who was supposed to bring big hits to the defense. Now, here's the interesting thing with this sort of dichotomy between the 3 types of safeties employed by the Kansas City Chiefs. If I were to ask you which one is Justin Reid, probably you would have a difficult time answering that question, because Justin Reid is able to embody basically all 3 of these types of safeties. That's a good thing. That's a big deal. Here's why that's a big deal. Now, you have Dan Sorensen on the field. Guess what? Dan Sorensen's on the field. He's lined up, and your offense knows that's the enforcer safety. That's not the corner heavy. So, all we do is motion our offense around a little bit, call a couple of audibles, and all of a sudden Tyrann Mathieu is doing this on tape once more, because you have an enforcer safety on the field. He's the guy who's supposed to be able to stop the run. We run a pass towards him. You have the corner heavy on the field, the guy who's supposed to be be better against the run than a corner, but not quite as good against the run as maybe the enforcer guy. Well, now we make it look like we're running to the strong side of the field so that you put your enforcer over there and we're on the back side for 30 yards. If your defense has safeties like Justin Reid, who can play all 3 of these prototypes, then what we can do is really confuse an offense. We can play offensively on defense. Now, here's the thing. Justin Reid is able to play all 3 of those types of safety, at least in my estimation. He's not the greatest at playing the corner heavy, but he can do it. He's a pretty big guy, so he can do the enforcer stuff. He's really fast, so he can do the center fielder stuff. Brian Cook is more of an enforcer. Maybe I have not made the observations necessary on Chamari Connor to really diagnose what type of these safeties he is, but what I will say is that he looks to me to be the type of guy who can do all 3 of them. I don't know that he is the strongest enforcer in the world, but he looks to me to be a stronger guy than was Juan Thornhill. He does not look to me to be the type of guy who is able to really lay the hammer down like Brian Cook, but I think he's better in coverage than Brian Cook. if we have Jaden Hicks, a guy in my estimation who definitely fits the role of enforcer, but who I think has the athleticism necessary to learn what it means to be the center fielder type safety, and who is able to do in zone coverage, I think he's much better than he is in man coverage. But if he's able to do that to an extent, the Chiefs could have 3 safeties on the field who could all be any one of these 3 prototype safeties. And that makes the defense much harder to read for opposing offenses. That can be a very big deal. The second point that I have here marked out, finally, some consistency. We have here Justin Reid in the final year of his contract. We have here Brian Cook, who is entering year 3 of his 4-year rookie deal, Jamari Conner entering year 2 of his 4-year rookie deal, and Jaden Hicks playing the rookie season, the first year of his 4-year rookie deal. I don't know that the safety position. So next year, the reason I'm making this point is next year, if we are to assume that Justin Reid walks away from the Kansas City Chiefs, he's very expensive. This is the final year of his contract. Will he be re-signed? If we're assuming here, for sake of argument in this video about Jaden Hicks is able to assume the role of Justin Reid in this defense next year, that would give them Brian Cook, who will be on the last year of his contract, Jamari Conner, who will be in the 4th year of his deal, and Jaden Hicks, who will be in the 2nd of his 4-year contract. What this means is the season after next, Brian Cook's contract would be expiring, and Jamari Conner would be entering the 3rd year of his rookie deal. This is where it helps to have a general manager who has strengths. Now, I lived through the Carl Peterson era, so I am able to really take pleasure in the fact that Brett Veach has strengths, but he does have strengths. He's able to identify and acquire talent through the draft at defensive back positions. So I think that what he's going to do is let it ride. I think that what he's going to do is assume that he is able to find starting safeties through the draft at some point. And the idea of consistency at safety might not necessarily be something that we can count on here in Kansas City. It might be that the Kansas City Chiefs are constantly turning over safety talent. The number 3 idea that I have on this list is Fantasyland. So everything works out. What's next? This is saying, okay, well, maybe all 3 of these safeties, Brian Cook, Jamari Conner, and Jaden Hicks, end up being the guys that we want in the secondary moving forward. So you figure out how to re-sign Brian Cook. You figure out how to re-sign Jamari Conner the year after that, and the season after that, you figure out how to re-sign Jaden Hicks. What that means is the Kansas City Chiefs get to focus on other positions in the draft. Now, it sounds stupid. It sounds remedial. It sounds like, obviously, right? But it's not as simple as that sounds. The Kansas City Chiefs are constantly trying to build a better team. Every team in the NFL is constantly trying to build a better team. One of the ways you do that is you are allotted a minimum of 7 draft picks every season. What you do with them from there is your business. You can trade them, etc., but you get that stipend at the end of every season. You get that allowance at the end of every season. The Kansas City Chiefs haven't been able to figure out left tackle for quite some time now. The Kansas City Chiefs haven't been able to figure out wide receiver for quite some time now. If the safeties are held down and the corners are more held down, then you get to start plucking multiple players at a single position in a draft, the way the Kansas City Chiefs did with offensive line this past season, the way the Kansas City Chiefs did with safety cornerback a couple years ago. You were able to, because look, It might be that you've done your scouting on a first-round pick and he just doesn't work out. It may be that you've done your scouting on a second-round pick and in a single offseason, he decides that he's Dennis Rodman at the club and he's Mario Andretti on the roads, and you lose him for a few games, right? We're going to probably have some experience with that. It might be that those things happen. And in that case, it helps to have multiple shots at a singular position in the same draft. As I'm saying this, it occurs to me, I don't know if Brett Veach has ever taken multiple wide receivers in a single draft. That is a strange occurrence to me as I am recording this video for the third time. So maybe that's the key here. But acquiring that type of talent at a single position to where you have it held down, you don't need anybody at that position. You don't have to draft anybody at that position like the Kansas City Chiefs might have if they decide to sign Brian Cook to a second contract, etc. That allows the talent snowball to start. You are drafting best players available. You are drafting positions of need. You are not going to draft a safety that might not be good when you don't need a safety. You can, if you're at the point in the draft where you think it's all just darts at this point, throwing a dart at a position of need makes infinitely more sense than throwing a dart at a position you don't need. So, you need wide receivers. You're at the point in the draft where you're just throwing darts. Throw a couple extra darts at wide receiver. One of them works out, all of a sudden, you have more talent at wide receiver. Now, the next thought that I have here, over under 621 snaps. 621 snaps are obviously the amount of snaps vacated by Mike Edwards as he moved on from the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the real question. If we set 621 as the high bar, right? If he plays 621 or more snaps, that's a hit. That would be a very good thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Is the low bar 305 snaps? 305 snaps, that amount of snaps played by Chamari Connor in his rookie season. So, over-under at 621, the minimum would be 305. If he plays less than 305 snaps, probably not a good deal, right? If he plays fewer than 305 snaps, probably something went wrong somewhere along the way. If he plays more than 621 snaps and injuries are not the reason, if he plays more than 621 snaps, the Kansas City Chiefs have another starter and they got him in the fourth round. Is there some break-even point in the middle? Say 450 snaps. Is that the point where if he plays more than 450 snaps, it's a win? If he plays less than 450 snaps, probably a loss. If he plays fewer than 305 snaps, Chamari Connor's number from last year, then it's an absolute disaster. Is that what we're willing to say? Are those the bars we're willing to set for Jaden Hicks' rookie season? I think they're actually pretty good measuring sticks. If he plays fewer snaps than Chamari Connor played last year, I think that's a loss. If he plays around the same amount that Chamari Connor played last year, maybe that's a wash. In my opinion, the correct number to set for success, or maybe not necessarily failure, but the correct number to set to assess his rookie season is that 621. Is he able to come in and replace the departed safety Mike Edwards? Is he able to come in and be that valuable for this team? He's certainly got the size. He's got the speed. Will he be able to put everything together with the playbook, etc.? Now, the final point that I have here to make is this. In 2025, the Kansas City Chiefs are scheduled to have $16.5 million of cap space right now. You factor in maybe one contract gets reworked. You factor in maybe a couple guys get cut. Then you're looking at $25 million maybe. You factor in, I believe this is saying with this year's salary cap. I don't believe that they are talking about a bigger salary cap. So you look at this and think, well, 16.5, maybe you get to 25, maybe the salary cap goes up 10 million again, you're looking at $35 million. As free agents, you have Justin Reed, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Marquise Brown, Nick Bolton, Charles Omenihu, Derek Nottie, Turk Wharton, Noah Gray. Those are all the contributors. Then there is future Hall of Famer Jack Cochran, who is also a free agent after next season. There's a lot of free agents after next season. These are the contributors, but a lot of depth guys on the roster end up being free agents. Who can you re-sign? If Jaden Hicks works out, if Jaden Hicks comes in and looks like a future starter, maybe is a rookie season starter, maybe plays enough snaps to be considered a starter, you don't have to re-sign Justin Reed. That does wonders for your odds at retaining Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. So here's where it gets interesting. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, lower leverage positions, right? You drafted CJ Hansen. You drafted Hunter Nourzad. Maybe you feel comfortable replacing one of those guys. Maybe you are holding on for one of those guys to be able to replace Joe Thuney. If Joe Thuney makes a lot of money, for a guard especially. But that interior three of Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith has been pretty good at keeping Patrick Mahomes fairly safe despite a revolving door at the tackle positions. We will assume the Kansas City Chiefs will do their best to re-sign Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. We'll just assume it. Marquise Brown gave you a discount rate in order to play with Patrick Mahomes for a season, in order to reclaim his NFL career after it stalling out statistically. He's not going to do that again. Marquise Brown is probably, in my opinion, going to be a 1,200-yard receiver this year. If he does that, he's going to be very, very expensive next year. If he does that, maybe he's not a Kansas City Chief next year. So, you're right back at square one with your wide receivers for one. But Nick Bolton here, I don't know if he gets re-signed either. Nick Bolton, I have been a fan since day one. Do not get me wrong. I defended Nick Bolton when other channels were going at him at the very fact that he was drafted. I don't know that he plays a high leverage enough position for Brett Veach to re-sign him to big bucks. I think someone is going to give Nick Bolton the big bucks because he will solve a problem for them. Brett Veach has also proven that he's able to find talent at the linebacker position in the draft and through free agency at discount rates, Drew Tranquil. So I don't know that Nick Bolton ends up coming back. Charles Omenihu has proven that he's very, very effective when he's on the field, but he has to be on the field. He's proven that he's very, very effective at not being on the field. Derek Nottie, you have to assume, is going to sign another one-year deal. Turk Wharton and Noah Gray, these are flips of the coin, in my opinion, as far as whether or not they end up being back as players for the Kansas City Chiefs. Jaden Hicks working out for the Kansas City Chiefs makes a great impact on this list right here. Jaden Hicks making it so that the Chiefs do not have to re-sign Justin Reed will impact this list immensely. Justin Reed, a 10, Justin Reed will be 28, I believe, probably a $14 to $20 million a year guy. You don't want to have to pay that. If you don't have to pay that, the odds of keeping Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith both together go way up. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to try to keep both Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Your odds of maybe being able to retain Marquise Brown, depending on what happens this season, goes up. Your odds of maybe keeping Nick Bolton in an already packed linebacker room goes up. So if Trey Smith works out, it means great things for this defense, for this team, for this salary cap situation moving forward. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And I hope to have you back for the next one.